And ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the 23rd Secretary of the Air Force, the Honorable Deborah Lee James.
Thank you so much, General Johnson, for that warm introduction. It's hard for me to stay away from the Academy. This is such an inspiring place to be. General Welsh, Brigadier General Williams, Brigadier General Armacost, distinguished guests, faculty and staff, the proud family and friends that I see beyond in the stands, and most importantly, is there anyone out there from the class of 2015? Now that's what I'm talking about. It is truly an honor and a privilege for me to be able to be here and to celebrate this fantastic day with all of you. And you know what? It's not just a fantastic day for the graduates, but it is also a fantastic day for families, friends, and loved ones. Of course, I am the Secretary of the Air Force, but first and foremost, I'm a mom. And so I understand very, very well all of the proud moms and dads and grandfathers and guardians and siblings and what they're thinking today up in the stands. And I just want everybody here to remember that none of you would be here today without the unwavering love and support that they have given you throughout your entire lives. They're here for you now, and they'll always be here for you. As I stand here this morning, the collective voices of 660,000 airmen around the world, active duty, National Guard, Reserve, and civilian, all of them are calling out their congratulations as all of you eagerly await dismissal from this very, very fine institution. This fine institution that has produced great heroes and great leaders through the decades. And I'm talking about heroes like Captain Sejong, class of 1965, Medal of Honor winner. Sully Sullenberger, class of 1973. Our Chief of Staff, General Mark Welsh, class of 1976. The next Vice Chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Paul Selva, class of 1980. And our very own, very special superintendent, I think the best superintendent we've ever had here at the Academy, Lieutenant General Michelle Johnson, class of 1981. So great leaders, great orators. It's the home of some inspiring speakers. I'm talking about people like Cadet First Class Aaron Oates. Now, Aaron, I don't know where you are, but let's just get one thing clear. You're not taking this podium during my speech, man, okay? So just stay seated. Now soon, all of you will follow in the footsteps of these great leaders, and your job from that day forward will be to lead us into the future. Now before I go any further, I do want to honor a long-standing tradition. By the power vested in me as the Secretary of the Air Force, I hereby grant amnesty to all cadets serving confinements or other punishment for minor misconduct. Now, General Johnson, I'm going to have to yield to you and leave it up to you to define exactly what offenses are minor. And of course, you know I never tell you what to do, but I'm just thinking, trying to hide a refrigerator from upperclassmen by wrapping it in a blanket and putting it on a bookshelf, I'm thinking that's minor. I don't know about you, but I'm thinking that's okay. Graduates, as we sit today in the shadow of Pikes Peak on this glorious spring day, I want all of you to think back just a few short months to the winter. The peak looked quite a bit different back then, and you can almost imagine Lieutenant Zebulon Pike, 209 years ago, sizing up that mountain and setting off on what was a daunting mission to reach the summit. Now, history teaches us, unfortunately, that Pike never made it, and his journal captured his thoughts back then. He wrote, "I believe no human being could have ascended to its pinnacle." Well, in fact, I'm guessing that more than a few of you had similar thoughts that day 4 years ago when you got off that bus for basic. But you know what? Pike was wrong, and so were you, because after 4 years and 101 semester hours of core courses in engineering, basic science, social science, humanities, athletics, electives, and so much more, you have arrived at that summit. And now, as you look out over the horizon, I'd like you to think about your class exemplars, the Wright brothers. It was almost 112 years ago that Orville and Wilbur Wright were tenaciously pursuing what seemed like a crazy dream back then, the dream of flight, with the support of their sister Catherine. And finally, in December of 1903, after overcoming failure after failure after failure, they converted that dream into a reality. And similarly, I'll bet there's some of you in the audience today who battled through some failures. It might have been an academic or athletic probation, a failed GR, an illness, an injury perhaps. Some of you had the moral courage to accept responsibility for an honor code violation, knowing full well that there would be consequences. During Beast and recognition, the upperclassmen, I think, made it pretty clear to you. If you want to leave, we'll show you to the door. But you didn't take that path. You stayed, and you kept your heads held high. You pressed forward, semester after semester, class after class. You forged ahead. And as a result, today, we all get to celebrate your perseverance. That's today. Tomorrow, you will lead us into the future. A future where you will face new challenges, and events will occur, and I guarantee you, you won't see many of them coming. Events like your class president, Cadet First Class Andrew Dane, faced in Afghanistan. I want to take you back to July of 2010, when then Senior Airman Dane was the lead Joint Terminal Attack Controller, JTAC, supporting the Army's 101st Airborne Division and the Afghan Army's 205th Corps, and his job was to work to eliminate Taliban from contested areas in Afghanistan. One of the soldiers deployed with Cadet Dane described the fighting during the 5-day battle, and I quote, "When we got there on day one, the Taliban hit us with everything they had. It was relentless. It was nonstop." Cadet Dane conducted more than 450 close air support missions overall during his deployment. And despite wounds suffered during an enemy blast, he continued fighting. He never gave up, controlling medical evacuations and attack runs. Today, Cadet Dane is a recipient of the Purple Heart, and he is exactly the caliber of airman that you will soon lead into the future, in peacetime and in combat, all across our Air Force. Please take a few moments and think about the thousands of graduates before you, the oath that you are about to take, what it means to serve in our United States Air Force, and the awesome responsibility that we are placing in your hands. And the biggest responsibility of all is always, always, always take care of your people. That is job number one. Now, I mentioned earlier Zebulon Pike, and he didn't think anyone could climb that mountain. Well, of course, we know that's not so. The problem was Zebulon Pike was not properly prepared back then. He only had summer clothing and not enough food to get him through that very challenging winter. Well, fortunately, all of you are far better prepared than Zebulon Pike was, because you've had 4 years of intense leadership training, and that has prepared you to enter the profession of arms. And you are entering the profession of arms at a time of unprecedented change in our world. Change in our geopolitics, change in technology, changes in the threats. Indeed, there have been many, many changes in the 4 short years that you have been here at the Academy. Many, many changes, though not everything has changed. Some things have remained the same. So let me just take a few minutes, let's rewind a little bit and talk about what's changed and what's stayed the same over these last 4 years. First of all, 4 years ago, you were battling Jack's hack. You were screaming upperclassmen, and you were wondering if you were ever going to make it. Well, 4 years later, you're now only moments away from becoming second lieutenants. So that's a big change, and a change very much for the positive. 4 years ago, we had this, what is it called again? Oh, the Commander-in-Chief Trophy. And you know what? We still got it, thanks to you and thanks to your prowess on the field. 4 years ago, the United States had the strongest, most capable Air Force in the world, and we still are today. 4 years ago, we were engaged all across the world in many, many different missions. And today, we still are, but I would give that one an uptick. We are more globally engaged than we were 4 years ago. Now, here come some of the real big changes. Some of the world actors have changed. The locations have changed that consume us and that we worry about. Our budgets are tighter. The gaps between us and our nearest competitors are closing from a technological standpoint. That greatest force in the world, it's the greatest force, but we are a force that is experiencing some strain because we are smaller than we were 4 years ago. We have high ops tempo, frequent deployments of our people. Our equipment is getting older and older, and we have some concerns about our readiness across the Air Force. Disruptive technologies and weapons that were once only possessed by advanced nations are now in the hands of an ever-growing cast of non-state actors and even terrorist organizations. China and Russia, meanwhile, are plowing full speed ahead with their military modernization programs, and they're developing worrisome advanced capabilities like anti-air, counter-space, and defensive cyber warfare capabilities. In the last year alone, our United States Air Force took the fight to the Middle East against ISIL. We helped curb the Ebola epidemic in Africa. We provided humanitarian aid after multiple earthquakes in Nepal. We have been reassuring our allies in Europe against what appears to be a resurgent Russia. So if there's one thing that's clear to me in the year and a half that I've been honored to be Secretary of the Air Force, is when big things happen around the world, the President of the United States calls 1-800-USAF. And each and every time, we kick into action big time. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you this pace of operations is not likely to lessen. It is likely to be with us for the foreseeable future. And I come back to my theme. That is why we need all of you to lead us into the future. For you are the next generation of leaders that Secretary of Defense Ash Carter calls the force of the future. You must be open to new ideas, welcome new ways of doing business, and you need to understand that our world is much more dynamic and complex than it has ever been before. Remember, graduates, ultimately we exist for one reason, and that is to deter and to defend, and if necessary, to fight and win America's wars. And everyone, regardless of their job description, regardless of career field, regardless of whether you're active duty, Guard, Reserve, civilian, all of us have an important role to play in that fundamental mission. Secretary Carter and I believe that your success, your ability to lead us into that future and to fight and win America's wars will rest on three main pillars. The first must be that we have to extend our technological edge over potential adversaries. So as a result, we're depending now on graduates like Cadet Kevin Cooper, the captain of the Academy Cyber Team, to help harness and develop the latest cutting-edge technology. In February, the Academy team defeated the other service academies at a cyber defense exercise in Pennsylvania. And last month, Cadet Cooper led USAF's effort in the NSA's cyber defense exercise. This exercise pitted the academies against each other to assess their ability to maintain network services while detecting and responding to network intrusions and compromises. So this was an exercise, defense of the academy, but very, very soon it will be defense of the United States of America, and you will lead us into the future. Far more than a fancy plaque of etched wood, your degrees represent collectively the investment of millions of dollars of taxpayer money. And as is very important that you, with respect to that money, you must always spend it wisely, and with respect to the trust that the taxpayers have placed upon you, you must keep that trust near and dear always. Which brings me to the second pillar, which is to ensure that our Air Force is efficient and accountable. Now, I'm sure you guys all remember magic money. So back when you were brand new, you'd simply go to the Academy bookstore, you'd scan a card, and you'd make your purchases. Things like books and uniforms, flight manuals, whatever you needed to accomplish your mission here at the Academy. But as second lieutenants, you will be responsible for a whole lot more than books. You'll be responsible for guarding our nuclear enterprise. You'll be flying million-dollar aircraft. Perhaps some of you will guide billion-dollar space assets. And the money that will be entrusted to you certainly won't be magic. These funds will be real and they will be precious. They will be scarce. We are having budget difficulties in this country. As lieutenants, we're going to be relying on your insight and your advice and at all times, good judgment. So when you or the airmen that you lead have good ideas, how to do things more efficiently, differently, free up precious money, free up precious time, we want to hear about them. That's why we set up a website called Airmen Powered by Innovation. We're taking ideas from the field, we're implementing them, and we're making positive change for efficiency in our Air Force. The third pillar is to ensure that our future force leverages the finest talent America has to offer, and this comes down to the importance of taking care of people. And I'm talking about talent, the likes of which we have right here in the class of 2015. Talent to lead us into the future. Talent to think critically and solve problems, to adapt rapidly to changing circumstances, to be decisive even when you don't have full facts, even in the face of ambiguity, to make the most of scarce resources, and to always have the moral courage to stand up for what is right. This class has 89 cadets continuing on to graduate school, including our top graduate, Cadet Rebecca Esselstein. And yes, sir, let's give applause for Rebecca. She is an astronautical engineer and Rhodes Scholar. We also have Cadet Stephen Beaton, a biochemist and Holiday Scholar. And we have two National Science Foundation Scholars, Cadets Peter Ivanich and Scott Alsid. We've got 360 graduates who are going directly into pilot training. We have 44. We have 44 who are destined for either nuclear or missile operations. And 89 headed for those ever increasingly important fields of space and cyberspace. We have world-class athletes in this class, like Cadet Kim Davis, who qualified for the Olympic swimming trials. And then we have community leaders, like Cadets Brome Hart and Avery Larkin and John Hamm. Who were key players in the Cadet Athlete Against Sexual Assault campaign, as well as the Take Back the Night event that I had the honor of attending back in April. This is also one of the most diverse classes that we've ever had in Academy history, with more than 20% women and 26% minorities. But you know what? Going forward, I think we can, and in fact we must, do even better, because in my opinion, our readiness in the future will depend in part from our ability to draw successfully the best talent from every sector of society and from every corner of this nation. And that's why we are committed across the board to diversity and inclusion in our Air Force, to expand opportunities for women. It's why we're removing barriers for same-sex couples. It's why we're creating more and more on and off ramps so that our personnel can more seamlessly go from active duty, National Guard, Reserve, and back at different times in their career. It's why we're developing leaders who are committed to an ethical and expert profession of arms, who will focus on a culture where everyone is treated with the dignity and respect that they deserve, leaders who will take care of their people, and have an Air Force where sexual assault simply has no safe haven, no safe haven. So graduates, here's the bottom line. It really, really, really comes down to our Air Force core values. Integrity first, service before self, in excellence in all that we do. These must underpin every action you take from here forward as an officer and a leader in our Air Force. Now, those are the words above the core values ramp. The values greeted you on day one at the Academy, and you've lived by them for the last 4 years. And these are words that you need to carry forward and continue to live by as a second lieutenant and beyond. Fighting and winning our nation's wars will ultimately depend on a number of things. Depend on how you lead. It'll depend on our technological edge. But first and foremost, it depends on character. So never, ever, ever compromise on character. Soon, we will add your names to the long blue line, and you will inherit the mantle of Air Force leadership. So I say to you once again, I charge you to lead us into the future, a future that will use the domains of air, space, and cyberspace to even greater degrees, a future that will likely capitalize on new technologies like hypersonics, directed energy, nanotechnology, and probably a few others that only the astro majors will understand. I charge you to lead us into the future where you will need to confront and you will need to overcome challenges unlike anything you could have imagined. You'll be asked to solve complex and multifaceted problems. Your resolve will be tested over and over and over again. I charge you to lead us into the future with a more diverse and inclusive workforce and to help foster an environment and culture of dignity and respect. And you will be asked to care for the men and women under your command as well as their families. This is a very, very important duty. And to ensure always that the United States Air Force forever remains, as it is today, the very best Air Force on the planet. All right, graduates, I just put a lot on you there, and I only have one more question to the class of 2015. And that question is, are you ready? I can't hear you. All right, General Welsh, I think they're ready. What do you think? All right, cool. You guys are ready. So congratulations to the class of 2015.